let me write HP, the Fourier coefficients of H. Okay, so this is 1 over, so the function H, because this is disk, D is a disk, the function H is parameterized on the angle theta, right? So HP, let me take HP, the Fourier coefficient of H. This is 1 over 2 pi, sum between 0 and 2 pi, H theta d theta. So H would be, H theta would be 1 over square root of 2 pi, the sum on P on D of HP, the Fourier coefficient of H, right? H hat the H hat HP are the Fourier coefficients. So if you compute this quantity for r equal 1, you will find this is 4 k minus 1 over k plus 1 square m times n exponential e I m plus n theta. That's all. This is for r equal 1. Okay, you plug in this formula into the shape derivative. You plug in the formula into this perturbation formula. So what you will get that nmn of d delta, contracted polarization tensors of the perturbed domain, because I made this choice for a particular choice. I made this particular choice for A alpha and for beta alpha. So I will end up with the contracted generalized polarization tensor. This one minus nmn of 1 of d is equal to square root of 2 pi delta mn over lambda square h m plus n plus O of delta square. So means what? That this formula is a kind of key formula. You perturb a little bit the domain. The perturbation on the mn tensor is given by Fourier coefficient of H up to some constant. Okay, so what does it mean? And you have similar results for the one with 2. What does it mean? It does mean that high frequency information, so high frequency information in the shape are these oscillations, the blue one. This is a high frequency information. Circle is just a zero frequency information. Circle is defined by r equal to 1. Okay, then H theta, high frequency information, if you take this one equal P and P is high, it's only in high order polarization tensors. Low order polarization tensors does not contain this one, at least the leading order term. So high order information is only high frequency information or high frequency oscillations on the boundary. So oscillations, you want to make H oscillate fast, you need non-zero HP star, HP hat for P large. Okay, if H has only 0 component, it doesn't oscillate. If it has 4 components, it still oscillates, but not too much. If it has 10 non-zero components, then there are oscillations. Okay, so high frequency oscillation of the boundary is contained in a high frequency or high order contracted polarization tensors. High order generalized polarization tensors. This is equivalent. These one are equivalent to generalized polarization tensors. So if you need to describe high frequency information in the boundary, or precise shape of the boundary, shape is oscillating, you need to get these ones. If you don't get these ones, you don't get this guy. So there is no way to reconstruct changes in the shape because you don't have the information. You can reconstruct from what? Okay. Okay. Now, so if you know this set, if you have the set of n m n 1 of d delta minus n m n 1 of d for m plus n smaller than n, you have only these observations. These are the observations. What you can reconstruct? You can reconstruct HP for p is less than 2n. You cannot reconstruct the others. You don't have them. Okay? Now, so you agree with this. If you have these ones for orders until n, then you can reconstruct HP for p less than 2n because you have p is the sum of these two. Okay. Now, from noisy m observations, can we reconstruct what we can reconstruct? Okay. If we have these observations, these are measured and they are noisy, can we reconstruct something? Okay. So it depends on the model of noise we will put. So let me assume and then assume this exponential noise model, and then I will justify it when I look at the multipolar expansion. So we introduce a mn. They are given by you invert this one. So they are given by lambda 2 to square root of 2 pi mn of n mn 1. So I will consider the following thing. I will consider that we are interested in small volume expansions. We are small inclusions. So what I would have small changes of the shape of a small inclusion. Okay, so I will have observation of delta prime delta d minus delta prime of d for delta prime small. So I take small disk of size delta prime and I change a little bit its boundary. And I would like to understand if I know these guys, can I reconstruct this function h, these small changes. Okay. So I will introduce this guy delta. So here we divide it by the volume because the delta prime to the power m plus n because of the scaling properties. So this is just nothing else than delta prime to the power m plus n because of the scaling property of n mn of 1 of delta d. Okay. When you scale, you multiply just by the scaling parameter to the power m plus n. Okay. And I assume that it's corrupted by noise. So I have this one, lambda delta prime delta d minus n mn 1. So lambda, let me get rid of lambda, it's fixed, of delta prime d. These are my observations. Okay. I know that my measurements, they are IMN given by this formula plus some noise. This is measurement are corrupted by noise. Okay, and this AMN from the asymptotic expansion I know that this is h m plus n because of this form, plus some error measurement, error approximation. Of something of order delta. I divide it by, right? So I divide by this, by delta, so I got O of delta. First term is O of 1, second term is O of delta. And this O of delta, I will assume that this is measurement noise. Like this morning, measurement noise dominates approximation noise. So I will get rid of this. So my measurements are nothing else then I can keep delta because it's my measurements. So let's keep the delta here. My measurements are nothing else than delta h m plus n because of the asymptotic formula plus sigma noise over sigma noise w m n. Okay. So what kind of noise I would take? Gaussian? It would not make sense. So I will explain why it does not make sense. Because from multistatic response matrix, it's harder to get high order than to get the first orders. So it's much harder. The problem is exponentially ill-posed. I will show it to you and give you the reason. So does it make sense to say that order 10 has the same statistics than order 1? Order 1 is much easier to get. Order 10 is exponentially ill-posed problem. Getting order 10 is exponentially ill-posed problem. So it makes sense to get as a statistic of this guy to get exponential statistic. So something like its variance is exponential and this exponential is related to the size of this small inclusion. It's related to delta prime. Exponential to kappa m plus n over m square n square. What is kappa? Kappa is the log of delta prime. I will explain it. It will become clear in half an hour. Okay. And the sigma noise is the amplitude. So the variance of this noise is exponential variance. As m plus n is getting higher, it's exponential variance. It means that getting hm plus n from amn is exponentially ill-posed problem. Okay. Now I have to estimate. So what's the estimator of this guy? Estimator, least square estimator. It's easy to get. Least square estimator. Maybe I have to go here. Least square estimator is. Estimator for HP. What I want to say, I have this measurement. I want to reconstruct this guy. Okay, I know that there is noise, and I know the statistic of the noise. Okay, I know the variance of the noise. So the estimator, least square estimator, is nothing else. Is nothing else like as 1 over delta, the sum, because this is when when you make this P, you will sum all the A and N such that M plus N equal P, and then you decrease the effect of the noise, and you decrease it in the optimal way, L2 optimal way. So it would be 1 over delta sum from N equal 1 to P minus 1, 1 N P minus N, and A measurement P minus N, N. You take the measurements, you take all the indices such that their sum makes P, and then you sum them, and you get HP estimator. And actually, if you compute it, you will get that this is HP plus sigma noise over delta times some independent Gaussian variables. Of mean zero. So the expectation or your estimation is HP. So your estimator is right. It doesn't change the expectation. The expectation is the true parameter what you are looking for, and its variance you can compute what is its variance. So actually, let's introduce like this morning notion of signal to noise ratio. So what's the signal to noise ratio here? So signal to noise ratio would be delta over sigma noise square. So this one, delta over sigma noise square, would be the signal to noise ratio definition. We define the signal to noise ratio as delta over sigma noise square. Okay? If the amplitude of the noise is very large, signal to noise ratio is very small. And there is no way to get the perturbation H. I will show it to you. So compute what is the variance of this estimator minus HP. So if you compute what is the variance, actually it's something like almost signal to noise ratio minus 1, I don't have the formula here, times exponential this guy, 2 kappa p. What you want to make actually? You want, if this is a good estimator, the variance has to be smaller than the order of the guy. Otherwise, you don't resolve, you don't reconstruct HP. Okay? So, from the measurements, you reconstruct HP estimator. You know that its expectation is the true parameter, but it's the variance. If this variance is large, then it's not a good approximation of the true parameter. So, if you suppose that HP is of order 1, this variance has to be smaller than 1. Otherwise, you don't resolve mode P. Huh? In order to resolve the P mode, you need variance here around to this is the variance would be smaller than 1, and to this one means that your signal to noise ratio has to be much larger than this guy. Okay, so you need, if you take the log, you need to have, you resolve the mode P. Actually, you can resolve all the modes up to n if n is smaller than 1 over 2 kappa log of signal to noise ratio. So if you want to resolve mode 2, you need log of signal to noise ratio over kappa larger than 2. If you want to resolve mode 10, you need very high signal to noise ratio. Okay, and actually it's exponentially opposed. So in order to resolve mode P, you need signal to noise ratio to be such that its log is larger than n. You can forget about this constant. In order to resolve mode 3, you need the signal to noise ratio of order 10 to the power 3. Okay? Otherwise, it's incorrect. Otherwise, this variance is too large. It's clear? And in order to have signal to noise ratio of order 10 to the power 3, you need the sigma noise to be very small. If sigma noise is large, then signal to noise ratio is small, and then you resolve nobody. You don't have enough resolving power. So this is called the resolving power. This n is called resolving power. You don't have enough resolving power to solve the problem. Whatever you are estimating, it's wrong. It's variance of order it's variance of order the value you are looking for. Good. Now, so this is Ilpousness character of this inverse problem, exponentially Ilpousness problem. But we have a formula. We know what this is. We know what is delta over sigma noise. Then we know what modes can be resolved and what modes can we just forget about it. Them. If we want to reconstruct them, then everything will blow up, because we are reconstructing noise from noise. So everything will blow up. Now, so now I'll show you this matching algorithm from generalized per-adjacent tensor. So what we know? We know that I don't know whether it's still here or not. We know that it's still here. We know that higher frequency oscillation is in high order generalized polarization tensors. Okay. Low frequency oscillations are in low order generalized polarization tensors. Assume that we have NMN 1 or 2 for m plus n, for mn smaller than capital N. This is measured. And we want to find the domain. This is measured. It corresponds for some domain D. And we want to find D. One way is just to minimize over B. What would be NMN1 for B? This is computed. Minus MMN1 from D, and this is measured. And we minimize over all Mn smaller than N. Okay. To minimize this one, we have to compute shape derivative. Shape derivative, we compute it. It was over there. shape derivative for generalized polarization tensors was not here, but was somewhere. Okay. For disks, this is this one. Okay. So and then we can try to get the solution by optimization algorithm. But this formula shows that low frequency information is here. Frequency oscillations. This is Mn. This is N, and this is it starts with Mn the 2. Okay. This is high frequency information. High frequency oscillations. So if you try to minimize, and every one, these ones, M, N, N, they contain exactly the frequency M plus N. So if you want to minimize over all the sum, the algorithm will minimize over low frequency and high frequency component. So it will not be very resolved. So you will lose the resolution. Because when you minimize low frequency information plus high frequency information, the algorithm will choose low frequency information because it contains stability. So this direction is stability. This one is a resolution. And there is a trade-off. If you want a resolution, then you become unstable. If you want stability, then you lose the resolution. Okay? So one way is just to start with this low frequency information, get the solution, minimize over only the low frequency information, get the solution, and then use the solution as initial guess for minimization over higher range of frequency, or over all of this frequency here. Because you are very close to the final solution, then you can both gain some stability because you are very close, and gain most importantly gain resolution. Find all of these small details, and then you do it like this. And this is what is called a Hoping algorithm. So the Hoping algorithm is kind of handling this trade-off between stability and resolution. Okay, now I was explaining all of these things on generalized polarization tensors, and I would like to show the link between this generalized polarization tensors and the multistatic response matrix. So I will keep this one. So I have a multistatic response matrix. I have a small inclusion here. I have a source point and I have a receiver. Okay. So let me consider, and this D is equal to D, some location plus delta, characteristic size, times B. Okay, this is conductivity inclusion. K is not 1 and it's 0 from 0 to 1. Okay. So the solution Uy is solution to the conductivity problem. Divergence. This is divergence 1 plus K minus 1 characteristic size of D, gradient Uy equal Dirac mass at Y. This is source point. Okay? And then Uy minus some harmonic function goes to infinity. This is illumination. Okay? So what do we know? We know that Uy of x is equal to h of x plus single layer potential of lambda a minus kd star minus 1 of dh d nu. So not h, my point source is here. So just so Uy is solution to what? H here is my fundamental solution. Hy is gamma y of x. Okay, it's gamma of x minus y. So my representation I know that, and I know that uy is equal to my fundamental solution plus the normal derivative of my fundamental solution on the boundary of D. This is, I know, this is the representation formula. Okay. Now look at the green function, this fundamental solution, and make its Taylor expansion. So in order to get the leading order term, what I did, I expanded this one. I said that normal derivative, I will now call it h. It's the same as it's on y, not on y. This one is approximately nu, the normal times gradient of h at the location. This is what, in order to get the first order approximation. And then the single layer potential here, it was gamma of x minus y d, y prime, and y prime is on the boundary. So I took the limit when x goes to infinity. Okay, and so expand, make Taylor expansion of the fundamental solution when x goes to infinity. And what I kept here, I kept just leading order term is gamma of x, and then the other term is gradient of gamma of x. Okay, so that one minus g. Okay, so times x minus g. Okay, that one gives the polarization tensor. That one gives the dipole approximation. Now we can do the same. In order to have all the higher order terms, we make a Taylor expansion of this one to higher orders, and we make Taylor expansion of this one to higher orders, and then see what is going on. So if you do it, so you can write the fundamental solution xy prime. You write it x minus d, y prime minus d. This is exact because it depends only on the difference x minus y prime. So d will cancel out, and this you can write its Taylor expansion. It's sum on alpha equals 0 to plus infinity minus 1 to the power alpha, alpha star, alpha derivative of gamma x d, y prime 1d to the power alpha. And this holds when x is large, when x goes to infinity. Okay. Now you plug in this one here for the single layer potential. Okay. So you will get uy of x minus gamma y of x fundamental solution is equal to the integral on dd of the sum. I will truncate it immediately. From alpha beta equal 1 to k. So you expand this term, but you expand this term too. Okay. Of the sum on d of minus 1 alpha star d alpha. Why am I writing this late? So okay, let me write the final formula. Minus 1 alpha d alpha gamma x minus d. This will get out from the integral because you will integrate over the variable y prime. Okay, so you keep y prime inside this integral, and here you keep a normal derivative of y prime minus d to the power beta. Okay, so you will get something like d alpha gamma x d q alpha beta. It depends on d, some tensors, times d beta gamma d and y. So you will get derivatives from of the green function from the source to the inclusion times some tensors times derivative of the Green function from the inclusion to the receiver. That's all. Plus, if you make it carefully, because derivative of the first Green function is log, its derivative behaves like 1 over x. 2 derivative 1 over x to the power 2. Alpha derivatives 1 to the power x to the power alpha. So the remainder, when you truncate the series here, would be, actually it can be proved, O of delta to x minus z. And this is k plus 2. Okay. So it's of order the characteristic size to the power k plus 2 over the distance from the target to x. So this would be your array. This distance, larger is the distance, smaller this term. Okay. That's why we have this difference between inner and outer expansion, far field expansion and inner expansion. So, okay. So what's a q alpha beta of z? You can write them out or down. It's an integral on dt of y prime minus d to the power alpha, lambda a minus kd star minus 1 of d over d nu y prime minus d to the power beta. These are q alpha beta. They are likely to be the polarization tensors, d sigma y prime. And why they are polarization tensors? Just a change of variable. You call this variable y tilde. dd would be z plus delta db. Okay. And you make the change of variable. Kd star is invariant by this change of variable by translation and scaling. Okay, so you will get the q alpha beta of z. These are sum on d delta b. So let's make first scaling, first translation. Y alpha lambda a minus k delta b star minus 1 of d beta d nu, and then you make a scaling. If you make a scaling, you will get b here, and you will get delta here. You will get delta to the power alpha plus beta plus d minus 2. So there is alpha here, there is beta minus 1 here, and there is d minus 1 here. So it's exactly like the same as the scaling properties. So d equal to this is this one, and this is what? This is nothing else like other than m alpha beta of lambda and b. So we have the generalized polarization tensors. So the effect of the inclusion, first one is the dipole, but then derivatives, higher order derivative of the Green function. It's quadruple, it's multiple. Okay? And in front of these multiples, there is this polarization tensors. Exactly what we introduced. And if you think about it, these are harmonic coefficients. So that's why all the properties holds for harmonic coefficients. Okay? Now, how to so this is nothing else than multipolar expansion. This is called multipolar expansion. So let me write it down maybe here. Donc, multipolar expansion. uy of x minus green function x minus y, this is what I call gamma y of x, is equal to sum alpha beta from 1 to k minus 1 to the power alpha square delta size of the inclusion alpha plus beta. Then there is d alpha green function from x to g, m alpha beta, and derivative green function from y to g, from the source to the inclusion multiplied by these tensors, and then from the inclusion to the receiver, plus O of delta to the power x minus g to power k plus 2. Okay. Now it's about algebra. What we want to do, I showed you this matching algorithm. If you find the polarization tensors, then you can find the good approximation of the shape. So from multistatic response matrix, we have so multistatic response matrix will be, this is D. So I have an array here where they are these point y sources, and I have receivers x. Okay. This array is englobing the target. For any pair of source and receiver, I have this formula. So I have multistatic response matrix. Assume that I locate, I know what is G. Assume that I know what is G. Can I get M alpha beta? It's nothing else than algebra. So how to do it? We can solve a least square problem. And actually it has a nice structure. This multistatic response matrix has a very nice structure in terms of as a function of the multistatic as a function of generalized polarization tensors. So multistatic response matrix is linear combination. This is linear combination. Linear combination of generalized polarization tensors. Okay, I can solve this least square problem. But how much can I get? Given signal to noise ratio of the data. So I know that my measurements are corrupted by noise. This guy now is with variance 1 and variance 2 on the diagonal terms. Variance 1 and off diagonal terms. It's not exponential. It's my measurements. Okay. This one is okay. How many can I get? Generalized polarization tensor in stable way. I have to introduce what is signal to noise ratio and the resolving power. And when was this? It was here. For reconstructing or for estimating this small changes, I suppose that the model is with exponential variance. Why is this? And I said that it makes sense for multistatic response matrix. Because look at this. This one behaves like what? It behaves like 1 over the distance to the power alpha, right? One derivative is like 1 over L. L is this distance. Distance to the array. This one behaves like 1 over L to the power beta. L is large compared to the size. Okay. Now M alpha beta, in front of it there is 1 over L to the power alpha plus beta. And I have sum. And I have data. So in front of it, for if alpha plus beta is high, this is small. So I have, what's the structure of the matrix? I have something like this. I have something like this. I have data is equal to something of order L0, as called A0 plus 1 over L A1 plus 1 over L square A2 plus blah blah blah. Okay, if this is noisy, then this one I will make, if I reconstruct it, I will make almost the same noise as in the data, because it's forget about this one. L is larger. Okay. So this one A0 will, the noise amplitude in A0 it's comparable to the noise amplitude in the data, but this one A1, forget about the other ones. It's data minus A0, so same. It's some amplitude for the noise, but I multiply it by L, so I amplify the noise. A2, I multiply by L square, it's even worse. I amplify more the noise. 1 over L to the power alpha plus beta. If I want to reconstruct M alpha, I will amplify the noise by L to the power alpha plus beta, roughly speaking. So it's an exponential noise model. Okay? And if I do the analysis, it's going to be like this. So this is roughly speaking what's going on. You have to estimate quantities. In front of them there is very small parameter, and it's getting more and more powers. So you will make a lot of noise if you reconstruct these terms, because you amplify the noise a lot. So you have to estimate what's the order here, M, given a signal to noise ratio, what's the highest one that you can resolve it. Okay, so this is exactly so this will justify this exponential model, exponential variance model. It's not about the structure. I said the structure is the same. It's always Gaussian, but the noise, the variance, can becomes larger and larger. Okay. So I would like to introduce this. Okay. Now what's the resolving power? Resolving power for reconstructing this generalized polarization tensors from the MSR data. Okay, so I will introduce this eta equal to delta over L. L is the distance to the array. Delta is the characteristic size of the inclusion I'm looking for. And to introduce the signal to noise ratio. This is definition is equal to eta square over sigma noise, the amplitude of my Gaussian noise. It's and then the resorbing power, the number M of polarization tensors that I can get. So it's I call it it's not, let's call it K, alpha plus beta equal K. The number K of polarization tensors that I can get is of order minus logarithm of the signal to noise ratio over 2 log of this eta. Okay. So why I am getting this? Because I will write estimators for the generalized polarization tensors, and then I will write a formula for the variance. So the estimator would be M-based. The expectation will give me the right one. But the variance has to be smaller than the order of magnitude of the polarization tensors. Otherwise, they are not resolved. I'm computing something which is completely wrong. Okay. So the number of generalized polarization tensors that I can estimate is in terms of the signal-to-noise ratio, of the amplitude of the noise, of this distance, of this size compared to the array. So if I'm very far from for fixed delta, I'm very far from the array, signal-to-noise ratio decrease, log decrease, number of things I can reconstruct decrease. Okay. If delta becomes larger, then signal-to-noise ratio becomes larger, log becomes larger, and k may becomes larger. Okay. If the noise becomes larger, then signal-to-noise ratio decreases, and if the signal-to-noise ratio decreases, then the number of reconstructed or resolved GPTS will decrease. So this one increase, this one will decrease. Good. Then, given this generalized polarization tensors, I can do the matching algorithm and will find the shape. But for so matching algorithm is expensive. It's very expensive, so you cannot make it in real time. So if you want to make real time identification, this cannot work, because real time you want immediately computing the generalized polarization tensor to say what is the target. But in general it's impossible, because it could be anything. So you have to look at it in some dictionary, because you know what you are looking for. So if you are interested in target aircrafts, then you make a dictionary of all the aircrafts. You compute them. You compute their generalized polarization tensors. Okay. You make this is your dictionary. Now aircraft is there. You get the multistatic response matrix. This is what you get from this multistatic response matrix. You do least square solver, and you get generalized polarization tensors. Now you have from this generalized polarization tensor to say immediately which element in the dictionary is. You know it's one of these elements. So you know this is the element. It's nothing else than some rotation, some scaling, and some translation of one of these elements. So you can do least square search. You search for theta, you search for S, you search for Z, and then you will find which one, which aircraft. Maybe it's a smaller one. It's rotated because it's in space, and it's translated because it's you don't know you fixed the origin somehow. It's translated, rotated, and scaled. You can do least square search and get these parameters, but still it's not real time. So what is real time is to use this scaling, rotation, and translation properties. So what you do from this polarization tensors, you compute invariants. They are given in terms of this n11, n21, n22. It's non-linear formula. It's in the notes. Okay. Some invariant is invariant to what? To rotation, scaling, and translation. So you compute from GPTS. You compute its invariance. It's a function of what you computed, just the arrangement of what you compute, and then you compare the invariance of your target to the invariance of the dictionary element. Now there is no search. You don't minimize it. You just minimize this difference between all the elements, and then you are done. Because you don't make least square research about all the three parameters. Okay, you just compute the invariants and you compare them to all the elements in the dictionary, and immediately you will find which one it is. Okay, good. So let me stop. This is a real-time identification. So there are examples in this note. So tomorrow I will discuss imaging extended targets. So time reversal imaging, and the small shape deformation of extended targets. And if time will permit, I will show you something about invisibility. So it's going to be done tomorrow. Thank you.